Hello my friends, welcome to the FPV FAQ. I've been a little bit obsessive over the past 18 months in buying FPV gear, and I thought I'd use this to your advantage to show you some of it and leave a couple of comments. First topic, goggles. In the order of cheapest to most expensive, I'll start with the Quanum V1, this one down here. It's a cheap phone box with a very low resolution screen and crappy head straps. I do not recommend it, but it's cheap. Over here is the Quanum V2, a little better phone box, a little higher resolution, and around $100. I recommend it. It's good for its price. Over here is the original Headplay Goggle. You can buy it on Get FPV if they still have it for cheap, but it comes covered in sticky glue. It has a massive power/connection brick, and I can't get my eyes to focus on this thing. I do not recommend it. Further down here is the, let me make a little room for it. Is the Headplay HD. I pre-ordered it when it first came out, and I waited like half a year for it, and there it is. It has a great image, it has a built-in receiver, and I don't use it because the image is huge. I can't deal with that, but if you like a large field of view and you don't mind looking like a cyborg with a box on your head, this is a pretty good pair of FPV goggles with even a built-in receiver. Sits very comfortable on my head at least. Over here in the back is a Dominator HD2. I don't think I have to say too much about this thing. I don't like it because the image is too large for me and the edges are blurry. Apart from that, it's a pretty good pair of goggles. Comes with an optional built-in receiver, so you can even put a diversity sort of receiver in there, but I don't care about that. I bought it without the receiver and just using external receivers. And then my favorite piece of equipment, the Cinamizer OLED built into a Bollet ski mask. Unbeatable in image clarity and comfort, at least on my head. I'm using that ski goggle and the factory eye shield, what Cinamizer provided when they were still selling that that piece of gear. Some people will not like this pair of goggles for two reasons, or actually three reasons. The first is the image is relatively small, so you kind of feel like you're sitting in the middle of the back of a movie theater instead of the front row, like you would feel like with the Dominator HD2 or the Headplay HD. And it does not come with a built-in receiver or any option for it. And it is very expensive. And fourth, it's discontinued. So yeah, I would like to recommend it, but I don't. Well, mainly because it's not available. Otherwise, it's the best pair of goggles I have. It's the only one I really enjoy using. So looking at the chat room, which is a little bit awkward because I have to go away from the microphone, I apologize. if you would like any question, I like to ask any questions about the stuff, please mention me in the chat room by putting @DrBen in somewhere in your chat message, then it will have a different color and my eye will be more easily drawn to it. So I have 33 minutes left. That was about goggles and yeah, about goggles. Let's move on down the line from your eyes to the camera lens. The next thing in line is receivers. I have a bunch of receivers here. That's not all I have, but yeah, I've put a few up here. So let me move this a little bit closer to give you a better look at what I have. So I started with an Immersion RC receiver, which I don't even know where it is. So the first receiver I bought was or at least the first 5.8 gigahertz video receiver I bought was a Immersion RC Uno 5800. I don't know where it is, so I'd like to ask you to imagine a box which looks roughly like this with antenna connectors on it. That was a pretty good receiver, but yeah, after a couple days of flying around, I learned that I need a diversity receiver. So I bought another very similar box, this time for $150 instead of, I think, $80, which was the first one. Looked again similar, not this one, this is just here the power video distribution box of Immersion RC, which I'm still using. But yeah, the Uno and the Duo 5800, they were pretty good receivers. They did a good job, but the main thing I didn't like about them was their annoying operation. So there was 2 buttons on the receiver, and you had to cycle through some annoying beep menus in order to get your settings right. So after that, I bought a couple of, well, first just one of these receivers over here, FR632 from, I think, Boscam. They're cheap, they cost $50. They're diversity, and they have a pretty good menu. So it's not powered on, and I don't have a power source right now. But you have 2 buttons, and you can control channel and band with this. Displays the frequency on the display and has an auto scan function. Pretty nice. Also comes with separate outputs for each receiver module, which is pretty cool. And it's very small. The main issue I have with this thing is that yeah, the color and brightness reproduction is a little poor. Or let's say inconsistent. I have, I think, 10 of them, and yeah, some of them have different color and brightness than the others. Anyway, I used these receivers for a long time until I noticed that they have this crappy color reproduction problem. And I used them in conjunction with a security video recorder. Here, this is a security DVR with still a couple of them stuck onto it, one I already ripped off to use it for something else. Inside this DVR there's not much, because you're supposed to put a hard drive in there, so there's a lot of room. The only thing what's in these DVRs is like a circuit board with a couple of inputs and outputs. It runs an embedded Linux, so you can do all sorts of fancy stuff with this, and yeah, that's how I started to run our FPV events. It takes up to 8 analog video inputs, and you can smush them together into a split screen and switch between the different input sources. That's what I use this thing for. It's pretty nasty and unreliable, but it got me started. But yeah, doing that and comparing the different output streams, I realized that these receivers are very inconsistent and need something better. So I bought a few different ones. Like this Modular Nano 5.8 receiver from Ivtron. Oops. And this AMWay, whatever receiver. I didn't test both of them yet because while doing my research on all this stuff, I kind of got distracted by the fact that Ivtron also offers some so-called Clearview receivers. So I bought 4 of them like a couple of weeks ago, and they're the best receivers I have so far, although they have a few issues that we're still working on. These receivers are a pretty long story. I made a huge effort in order to make them transportable and quickly usable in the race event, and also making sure that I can use all the outputs and record from all of them at the same time and switch between them to show the live image. So a lot of the effort I've done with them is not specifically related to the receivers themselves. The 2 main features what these receivers have at first is they have a lot higher sensitivity, like, I don't know, 10 or 20 dB or something ridiculous more than the other receivers that I have. So they pick up a signal when all the others already lost it completely. And also they don't have all these tearing and dropout issues, because they seem to do some smart muxing between the 2 video streams what they receive. So I believe they have 2 different video receivers, and they receive the same signal on both of them. And then if that signal gets some sort of a dropout and line image tearing issues, what you typically see on 5.8 gigahertz video streams, they somehow deal with this, and you get a lot less of that. So these are by far the best receivers I have so far. One of the main downsides is their price. So I think they cost around $500 a piece, and then you have to add up cables and software update and antennas, and finally penalties on the Australian borders. So I think in Aussie dollars I paid around $5,000 for this little box what you see there. So and actually more, there's a bit more stuff in it which I'm probably not going to show you today, but these are by far the best receivers. So if you want to see how they work, there's a couple of videos on my YouTube and my Vimeo channels showing how they work flying around the house here. And I will hopefully also in the near future post some video of our races in Sydney. But currently these receivers still seem to have some issues with receiving multiple video signals at the same time. So each one of them works great just on its own, but as soon as you run multiple video transmitters, yeah, it's getting a little more difficult. But I just received a new firmware update a couple of days ago, and I plan to install this here when I'm done with this live stream, and then move all the gear tomorrow to the racetrack again. So far to receivers. I'll have a quick look at the chat room and then move on to antennas. So all these antennas in that box are all circular polarized antennas. Probably the simplest antenna, what you usually see on most people's receivers, is a mushroom antenna. These are here Airblades from VAS. I be crazy. They're the left-hand polarized, the green ones. There are also blue ones, which are right-hand polarized. They are pretty good. Before you do anything else, I always put one of these on there and see how it works. Then I see quite a few people using these antennas. I don't think they're very useful for most environments I fly in. They are very directional, so they have a very narrow beam. The longer the spirals are, the more turns they have, the narrower the beam is. So this is a 5 and I think a 7 or 9 turn one. I rarely use them. Then here comes one of my favorites. I don't know exactly what they're called. They're from True Aerial Systems. And they come in this small variety and this large variety. The larger one has a flatter and wider beam and more gain. I like to use these a lot. They are great antennas. I think they cost around $50 each. A very similar deal you can get from True RC with their X Air and X2 Air antennas. From my experience, very similar in performance to the last one, to the pepperboxes. I like them a lot as well. Both of them come in left and right hand. For these ones here, you have to look on the back. There's a sticker if it's left hand. If not, it's right hand. And for these, the blue are red and the green are left. So does I say blue is red? Blue is right and green is left. Here I have one of the Ivtron wind antennas. They have a very nice neck. You can just form them and they stay there. I also noticed that they have very good blocking of the frequencies coming from behind you. And yeah, apart from that, I have not too much experience with them yet because they run on my Clearview racing receivers, and yeah, I'm still mucking around with the software to get them running perfectly. Yeah, I also have one of these antennas. I do not recommend them. Yeah, talking about antennas, I also have a few of these Celestial Reach Clearboost thingies. They boost the signal by, I think, around 15 dB. So I plan to do some installations with antennas connected over 10-20 meters of cable and for that they should be very useful. Apart from that, I found their use to be, yeah, well, in some situations they work, in some situations they make it a lot worse. So I plan to do a few more tests with that, but yeah, they sort of do what they advertise, as in making the signal stronger. I'm just not too sure of how much that actually helps. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, quick interlude. I forgot to talk about this thing here. It's, I think from Foxtech or something. I think you can get them on Banggood as well. Forgot the name. Something like D4-58, I think. It's the only 4-way diversity receiver for 5.8 gigahertz video that I found. I happen to have a few of them. That's why this one's called RX5. And the advantage is they have 4 separate receiver modules, which also are all outputting separately and as diversity. The downside is that you have to set the frequencies with dip switches for every module separately. So changing from one channel to the other is like the biggest pain in the behind you can imagine. That's why, yeah, there's a display of the dip switches, and I also translated this and put a list on here. But this doesn't help in most cases because they do not work on the typical frequencies we use. They work on some Boscam band, so I primarily use one of them at home here. I have wired up a couple antennas around the house to fly around my house, but since I have the Clearview receivers, this thing is just sitting in the box here. So let me have a quick look at the chat room. Indoors not good on the booster. Yeah, exactly. So the booster is good if you really have a weak signal. So if you either have a bad antenna or, well, then yeah, you're pretty much out of luck anyway. But if you fly far away and the signal is just getting grainier and grainier, then if you put a booster in there, it helps a little bit. But and also if you're just penetrating walls, it helps a little bit. But we tried to use these boosters in an indoor racing environment, and it just screwed the hell out of the video signal. It wasn't usable at all. So that was antennas. Let's move to recorders. I have, 5 minutes left. Then the camera is apparently going to die. So if that happens, you'll only have my voice left and no image. So I'll hurry up to get something in about recorders in the last 5 minutes. The first thing that I tried, or that I was successfully used to record FPV footage, and a lot of my videos, especially I don't remember, probably the first 100 FPV videos I did, were done with this little guy here, the original FPV-1000 DVR from ReadyMadeRc. Very nice little unit with a built-in screen, records to SD cards. The main issue I have with this thing is that it crashes when the video signal gets bad. So if you get too much interference, or if you plug out your model, then the receiver crashes and the recorder crashes, and you will have no recording. Next one I used a lot, tried to use, is the security DVR. It has a SATA connection, so I connect a hard drive to it and record to it. It records very nicely, it doesn't crash, but it records in some stupid format which I cannot import into any of my editors. So, bam. Not good. What I used instead is this HD video capture thing here. It's sold as sort of PlayStation recording thing. You plug HDMI in, it even loops it out again. You give it some power and then it records onto USB. So that's very handy. It does quite a good job. It's not, doesn't have a display, and I think it was around the same price like the ReadyMadeRc DVR. The main downside here is it does not take analog video, so you have to convert your video to HDMI before you put it in here. Same is true for this guy here, which is like a professional mobile video recorder. Records to very expensive C-Fast cards. The advantage is it can record in uncompressed or not so compressed formats like ProRes and ProRes LT. The disadvantage is it doesn't have a power input, so it needs to run off these ridiculous camera batteries, and it's very expensive. And the other, well, let's say general option is screens with built-in DVRs like this one here. I don't know where I got it from. Some company I buy video gear from sent me a message to say, hey, do you want one? I say, yeah, please send me one. And it's actually pretty good. I paid about $100 for it, which is probably, I assume, below retail price. It has a single antenna connection. It receives on all 5.8 gigahertz channels, has a AV input output, and it records onto SD cards. I put one of my slick shoes on there to mount this on tripods, as the one you can see in the mirror here. This just clicks onto my tripod, so I can put it somewhere, and I primarily use this to let people watch my FPV footage. Out of all these, I think the most practical still is the ReadyMadeRc FPV-1000, I think it is, which is not made anymore in this shape, but they have a successor. So if I would buy a DVR specifically for FPV, and I don't want it to be too expensive and relatively practical, I'd go to ReadyMadeRc and buy the successor of the FPV DVR, what they have on there. There's only one on their page, I think. It costs around $150, and based on my experience with this guy here, I'm sure it'll be pretty good. So, I think that is pretty much it.